I want to get this motor running perfectly. The question begs asking, why do I want to put so much effort in an old Briggs Stratton motor? Well, there's a story behind this, and I want to share that with you. It's about me, and it's about this motor. Ever since I've been a kid, I've drug junk home, especially when I was a kid. We'd go back to the woods. The farmers used to have old junk piles back there, and I'd drag stuff out of that junk pile and bring it home and try to fix it. I remember coming across an old sign, an old porcelain sign. It was heavy. Most people would look at that sign and say, why do you want to spend so much time? That's a piece of junk. I looked at it and I saw a go-kart. So I drug it home and used that for a floor and a go-kart that I cut out a pipe, galvanized pipe, welded it together with my dad's stick welder and put axles on it. I built axles out of bolts, what have you, The point is, I saw some value in that old sign and something that I wanted to make as a kid, a go-kart. I always wanted a go-kart. And part of that go-kart required to find an engine. So we found an old Briggs Stratton engine. It might have been a Clinton, but I think it was a Briggs Stratton. And I did like any kid would do. I tore it apart, tried to see if I couldn't get it running, and sure enough, I did get it running. So one part of the reason why I want to get this motor running is I've always had a desire to bring life to old stuff, and that's why I say using new to bring life to the old. That's my tagline. There's another reason, and I want to share that with you also. Here's the other reason. I don't know if you can read that, but if you can, you'll see that that's a tag that came off of that motor that's behind me. And that tag says, and let me share with you, Quick Manufacturing Incorporated, the House of Power, Springfield, Ohio. Well, when I discovered that tag, and the way I did, this was painted black, and I didn't know what was on there, so I put some stripper on there and got the black paint off, and I did a Google search. And sure enough, I found this Quick Manufacturing Incorporated. And I read some of the history behind it, and the history was intriguing. It talked about how this man, Mr. Quick, I forget his first name, I did know it, I think it was Clyde Quick, built a garden during World War II, 1943, 44, 45, I don't know the exact years anymore, but it was while the war was going on. And a lot of people built gardens back in that day. They called them victory gardens. And with these victory gardens, they'd take the vegetables and share with everybody. They were in need. And I even think they shared them with some of the troops overseas. Well, Mr. Quick decided he wanted to make it easier for him to till his garden, so he created a garden tractor. Just welded, I don't know how he did it, but he made a prototype of a garden tractor and he used that to till his garden. The neighbors saw that and they each wanted one. So he started making them for the neighbors. Well, his son, who was serving in World War II, after the war came home sometime, I think in 1945, I'm not sure, but he saw what his dad had developed and he had an idea that maybe this would be something they can sell. So they took this prototype, started this company, the Quick Manufacturing Incorporated company, and started making these garden tractors. I have no idea what they looked like or anything like that, but And so that started in 1946, and then they built the garden tractor, then they started developing other garden and lawn tools, and out of that came a lawnmower, this rototiller that I'm working on, and even a snowblower. And for 20 years they successfully manufactured these lawn and garden tools. And they caught the attention of another company, the Toro company. And then in 1966, Toro bought out Quick Manufacturing. And so there ended the 20-year manufacturing time of this company. And if you look at some of the early rototillers in the Toro company, they look real similar to the one that I'm working on. So this rototiller does have a little bit of history, and I want to just get it going. It's the kind that would be a backbreaker, I think, today with all the new modern rototillers. And that normally when I get something going, I don't go full out on restoration. But I've decided to do something a little different, at least with this motor behind me here. That motor, I would really like to take it and clean it all up and maybe put a fresh coat of paint on it, trying to save the decal. Now when I got this motor, this wasn't even on it. The flywheel was missing, some of the ignition components were missing, this was missing. There was just a lot missing. The crankshaft was bad, but I found another motor similar to the one that's right there, and I cannibalized it and put all those parts in here, just like I would have when I was a kid. And I put this all back together, and it ran by pouring gas in the carburetor. The next thing I did was I needed to get this carburetor here cleaned up so it would work. Stuff was froze up, wouldn't move. It wouldn't run on its own, and the tank was rusty inside. So I took this all apart, put it in an ultrasonic cleaner and cleaned it up the best I can, got my carburetor pick tools out and cleaned all the ports and put it all back together. And sure enough, the thing took off and ran, and it idled very nicely. That was in a previous video. And I thought to myself, I should just leave it like that, put it on a rototiller and go for it. And then I thought, no, I want to put a little bit more effort into this. And by the way, I did this exactly the way I would have when I was 13 years old. I reused all the gaskets, I reused this. I made a gasket up here, I didn't have one. The diaphragm, or the pump I call it, that's in right here, I reused it. I tried my best to not stretch it out, distort it, but the thing ran. That's the point, and it's got good spark. And it didn't have spark before, so the timing and the ignition and all that stuff works now. So what I want to do now, and by the way, this here, the original, the cannibalized recoil I put on this in the other videos made a heck of a racket. And it was this one right over here. And this motor here had this white one on it that you see now. And I took it off that other motor and put it on here. And this seems like it isn't nearly as noisy as that other one. So I'm going to use this. It matches the color of this motor, which is white. So all of that to say this right here, I'm going to take this completely apart and clean everything up and try to put a fresh coat of this creamish white paint on it to make it look like something. And I hope that you guys are interested enough in seeing how this turns out that you would just follow along with me. Let's get this thing disassembled. It shouldn't take too long because I have part of it done already. Put the parts there, put the bolts in with it so we don't lose them. Let's get this head off. Have the bolts loosened up, not sure. You see this head right here and these fins. I want to show you a little something about Okay, you see these fins here. On these small engines, these fins are cooling fins, and they need to be cleaned out fairly well because even an excess layer of paint would keep these from cooling properly. Now, if you want this motor to last as long as it can, you need to have that cleaned out correctly. But let's face it, this motor still runs even with this all clogged up. So these, I know that people don't like these motors, but in my opinion, they're just a tough old motor. It's hard to beat it. Now right now I'm taking off what I've always called the coil. It's works off of a magnet on this thing right here, which is a flywheel. Let's see how hard that comes off, or should I wait on account of the wire that's attached to it. Let's see if I can't get it up out of the way. Yep, there's the wire. And see, yep, there's a wire going down in there. So let's just keep that up out of the way for right now. Let's finish taking this off. This little screen. One of the videos I had, I actually put that on backwards. Put that there. That. We'll take one screw back and put it in one of the holes because I need to tap on this little round thing. I don't know if you can see it. To get this nut off, you just take a punch or something and you just tap it a little bit. Now, that's not smart. Let's get this back out of the way and see if I can tap this and get the flywheel off. It shouldn't be too tight because I just put it on recently. Yep, came right off, so let's pop that out. You're not going to believe this, but that pin is sheared right off. It's a good thing I'm doing this, because I need to get a new pin now for that flywheel, or key. Okay, let's take a look at this. Yep. Now this right here is where all the timing components are. We're going to just take this cover off. You can see how dirty it is on this side of the motor. That all needs to be cleaned. Put that stuff in there. Get a Phillips screwdriver right there. This is the condenser. We'll loosen that and we'll get it out of there. And that's hooked to this. See, we can unhook this spring. We'll unhook it off of this, I guess. And we will oh, the wire is loose. Let's get it off of there. Got all that stuff off now. Needs all cleaned up. We need to finish cleaning this all up. We'll finish taking this off. That's a ground wire, I guess. Let's see how that comes out of there. Oh, I didn't have that off before. That's tight. Let's see if that whole thing comes off. It does. Uh-oh. Oh, I see. There's a spring on there. Forgot about that. We'll take those off. And The next thing is this little pin right here. That's what rides on the camshaft. It goes up and down and opens the points. Let's get the muffler off. It should come off easy because I clean that all up, and it does. And now let's get this carburetor off of here, if I can. Loosen this up a bit and get this off. And this, let's see if I can't get one of these screws up. The tank's off. It's full of gas, so I need to go get the gas out of here. I have the gas out, but look at some of the residue down in there. That's going to make its way up into the engine, so I need to clean that tank a little bit better and filter that gas if I try to reuse it. Need to take this off right here. That requires a straight screwdriver. That is dirty, dirty. A little carb cleaner would go a long way with that. Let's take this bolt out here yet and get this off. And let's get the motor loose. I'm going to take it off. The gasket in between here is in really good shape yet. So let's see if that'll come off without that oil coming out of there. There's a couple pins on each side of this that's almost. There we go. Got that off. That. Now let's pull the camshaft out. Yep, let's turn that cylinder down just a little bit. There's that's out. That's out. That's out. Let's take a look at this and see why everything looks good in there. Still a little residual oil though. Let's get that out of there. Taking the cap off the piston rod. Bottom cap of the rod. There's the piston, a rod, and everything. That really doesn't look bad or worn. We'll lay that here. And now we'll take the crank back out. And there's the crank I put in it. Well, I have that motor all tore apart. I want to show, and I laid out the pieces, and I just want to show them to you. The block, the recoil starter, the side panel for the block, a bunch of screws, air cleaner, the pistons laid out here. It's just a lot of parts. Now I want to try to put this together. It's enclosed where I can paint it, because the thing would have been painted after it was assembled, partially assembled, and I want to do the same thing. The first thing I'm going to do actually is put the piston in and the crankshaft, and then this side cover. So The piston will just drop down. This is how it goes in, just like this. It'll drop down in here. Now, typically you would have a ring compressor to get that piston in there. I don't have one, so I'm going to have to work it in by hand. Okay, I've got that in as far as I want to. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slide the crank in so that, and before I put the piston all the way in, or I won't be able to get the crank in past. So now I need to get the rest of that piston down in there, and piston's in. See if we can get it lined up with the crank. Have it lined up. You can see it lined up there. The next thing I want to do is put on the cap. Have the bolts started there. Now I need to do is tighten them up. I have the lifters in. I have the cap tightened and the things bent over the bolts. Now let's put the camshaft in. There's a line right there. Okay, recap. I got the side cover on, crank in, camshaft, the head on, this plate, and I went and found this, which is original. This was an aftermarket, so I'm getting rid of that. I have tape on the spark plug to protect the hole. I think that this is ready for paint, and then I have some miscellaneous parts laying over here that I'll paint. Well, it's not together, but this here is ready. So what I need to do is just degrease everything again and get set up to paint. I've got it, the crankshaft needs to be covered on both sides. I have this plate I need to put on yet, just right here. There is a gasket. The gasket is not in very good shape, so I'm going to do like any red-blooded kid would do at the age of 14. I'm going to use it anyway. I have the first coat of paint on, most of it. I just used up what I had here in the shop and I ran out. Let's put this piece on right here. It goes like I said, there's a notch in there. It goes one way, and we grab the screw and start it. Snug that up, and let's grab the new condenser. Tell you what, that's the old condenser. Let's set that over here. Grab the new one. The way this works, the spring goes on the top, and the idea is you push down on that spring. Bolting on the tank. And carburetor. I guess we can put the muffler on next. I said the points, but I got this right. Wait a minute, let's get this hooked up. Little hose here needs to go in. Just a matter of shoving it in place. Okay, down there and up there, and then bent that down to hold it all into place. Get the hammer and a punch, locking nut. I'll do that. To save faith, I gapped the plug at 30. I'm going to just put it in next and get it done. I bought a new plug. We have the motor put back together. I put a little gas in it, and the spark plug, everything's back together. I tried to filter that gas out. If you remember right, there was a little dirt in it. Well, I went ahead and oiled this. I got that screen in, and then also I put the air cleaner on. Let's start it again. Right here's where the throttle would hook up. I don't have anything holding it, but let's see what happens. Let's give it just a little bit of choke. I have stuff bouncing all over the place here. We're going to call this project complete. We got the motor cleaned up, tore apart again, oil, spark plug, new points, recoil works good, new paint. Although it's not the best paint job, but it looks a lot better than it did. I'm glad I cleaned it up and painted it. I would like to hear about your projects if you have any that you'd like to share. Be very interesting. If you like my content, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to my channel, hit the notification button so you know when my next video comes out. And if you like projects like this, I would suggest that you watch this right here. It tells you a little bit more of who I am and what I'm about. Can it be fixed? Sure it can. Can you fix it? You're darn right you can. Until the next one.